Texas Tech wins their first Big 12 title ever in what was essentially a home game for them against BYU. They win 34-7, and this one wasn't really close. But if you ask me, it was closer than the score says. And just give me a little minute so I can explain how. What's going on, everybody? My name is Daniel Augustin. This is Multi-AF. Wow. So this is the start now of what's going to potentially be a very crazy college football playoff bracket. All right, we're going to figure out what's about to happen now with JMU, Miami, and Notre Dame, and BYU's loss right here just opened the door for all kinds of chaos. But let's talk about this game. I know the score says 34-7, but if you ask me, BYU, this was still a game. As crazy as that sounds, this was still a game. The biggest difference in this game, if you ask me, is play calling for BYU. It was play calling. The first drive of the game, BYU's drive, that was the best drive they could possibly have. I've said before, I go back and forth with fans sometimes. BYU fans. In the comments, I had a conversation with somebody, and I was saying I absolutely believe BYU can win this game. But they're going to have to run the ball to LJ Martin at least 30 times. They're going to need Bear Bachmeier to have his legs on third downs, third and shorts, third and longs, and be able to pick up third down conversions to keep extending drives so they can stay on the field, because the only way they're going to beat Texas Tech, a team that's got more athletes at wide receiver than BYU's got corners to cover, is by staying on the field and having 5+ minute drives. And they did that on their first drive. But they could not continue doing it, and that was the main problem. And Texas Tech's strength is their D-line, and then their next best strength are their linebackers. So they're pretty strong when you're talking about the trenches, and so it's going to be hard to dominate the game with just LJ Martin. You got to mix it up, and BYU had moments, but you can't afford moments in games like these. BYU has to literally be perfect. They can't really afford the margin of error that they need when they're playing against a team like Texas Tech, because this team just has more talent. They spend more money via NIL. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to be successful. But it does mean that in Texas Tech's case. And let's be real, Texas Tech, actually, they're playing pretty fluid, really, when it boils down to it. Their defense is setting their offense up. Texas Tech's offense did not have to work hard at all in this game. Just about every single time that they did score, they started off like 40 yards away from the end zone. They constantly had the best field position in this game. And here, let's talk about it. I took some notes down. We're going to talk about it first. Before I get into my notes, let me just look at the numbers really quick, just so I can get a reassessment of what took place. Bear Bachmeier, 16 of 27 for 115 yards. Whoa. 2 interceptions. He also had a fumble. We'll talk about that in a second. Parker Kingston had a throw in this game, so he was 1 for 1. LJ Martin did get 19 carries for 76 yards. I said he needed 30 carries. For him to get 30 carries, BYU was going to need to dominate the time of possession battle. And I don't know if they did. Let me see if there's a stat here for time of possession. See, there it is. Texas Tech won the time of possession. You're not going to win. You can't beat them if they got the ball longer than you. That's just not going to happen. Texas Tech had the ball for 32 minutes. BYU had it for 28. No, sir. For BYU to win, they were going to need the ball at least for 38 minutes in this game, close to 40 minutes. You can, and Texas Tech's offense, let's be real, BYU stopped them. The defense played. The reason why I'm saying this game was closer is because BYU's defense played better than the score would actually suggest. They had multiple stops, multiple turnovers on downs, multiple plays where they could have gotten an interception, but the ball didn't bounce their way, as opposed to Texas Tech, who had plays where the ball clearly bounced their way. Like, if I'm not mistaken, that was towards the end of the second quarter, where they fumbled the ball. The ball just squibs down the field towards Texas Tech's end zone, about 7 yards or so, into the hands of another Texas Tech football player, which is just insane. And that's just the way the ball bounced in this game. Like I said, it was an absolute amazing start for BYU, but they couldn't sustain that. It's a 60-minute ball game. And if you're not doing it for multiple possessions, it's not going to go in your favor. You turn the ball over 3 times. Let's just take those 3 turnovers away, and let's just say BYU scores on those 3 turnovers. We're looking at a different ballgame here. We're looking at 34-28, and let's be honest, a majority of those points Texas Tech scored came off those turnovers, right? Texas Tech just has bigger play ability that BYU can afford to give up. And they did. And honestly, there's at least 2 or 3 moments in this game where BYU had a corner. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if I'm going to say the right number here. I think it was number 5. Multiple pass interference calls were missed by the referee. So I'm not going to even sit here on this video right now and say that BYU was cheated in this game or the refs didn't give BYU a chance in this game. The refs missed calls, which were in BYU's favor. The refs did not make themselves a huge part of this game. All right. They even gave BYU a pass interference call that I'm not going to say it was a bad call, but Texas Tech fans would say they don't like that because they weren't getting the call themselves. Bears' ankle issue in the first half was the worst thing that could possibly happen to BYU. That literally took away what I said I knew they needed. They need that second runner who can catch you off guard on third down. And here, let me say this. This was the biggest thing to me. BYU came out in the second half. They were in great position to win this game still. I think it was still 13-7. It was 16-7 or 13-7. I think it was 13-7. They were in a great position to win this game, or at least to take control of this game. They come out in the second half, great possession. Okay, they start with the ball. They're moving it down the field. They're dominating that possession, all right? And then they got a second and long. They're about on like the 35-yard line on a second and long, and they go with the L.J. Martin run. Okay, don't come for me in the comments, but let's just do it like this. Let's be real. We talking second and long here. To win this game, you're BYU. You do not have more athletes than everybody else. What you do have is team chemistry, synergy, gutsiness. So you got to be perfect with the play call. To be perfect with the play call, it means you need third and shorts so that now you can put Bear Bachmeier in a position where he could potentially fall forward and just get you a first down, especially with a bum ankle. But instead, on a second and long, they hand the ball off to L.J. Martin, and he gets stopped, and it ends up being a 3rd and 10. And now you got 3rd and 10, and that was just about the worst thing that could happen to them. Let's see here. I wrote it down. Let me just read what I wrote. The run to L.J. Martin on second and long is simply the wrong call. You have to create third and short, and BYU was just a first down away from the red zone. Everything spiraled from that moment. Because like I said, it was 13-7. This game is closer than it looks. You feel me? It was 13-7. They tried to screen to Parker Kingston on third and long, which worked earlier on that drive. But here's the problem. For some reason, I think Parker Kingston got a little distracted, dismayed, disarrayed kind of situation. The linebacker jammed him, and it's so quick. I'm kind of upset, though. I'm kind of confused by Parker Kingston not turning around. I don't care what happens, who jams you. You know the ball needs to come to you right away. It's a screenplay. Screenplays mean the lineman will not be there to protect your quarterback. It's happening like this, fast. You gotta help him out. And Parker Kingston was not even looking. So that just really changed the whole dynamic of that drive. If they do get 5 yards on second and long and turn it into 3rd and 5, you're now in a position where you could potentially go for it on 4th down if you want to. Instead, they don't get the 3rd down conversion. Now it's 4th down. They go for a field goal, miss the field goal. Texas Tech comes down. They get a field goal. We're looking at 16-7, and now ultimately it's a 2-score game. And then from there, it kept on spiraling. You get the interception, then you get another interception, and then you get a fumble. And, with that fumble in particular, I think the ice cream truck is going by. That fumble is exactly why I said on a previous video, if I am a GM, if I'm a head coach, athletic director, I'm spending all of my money, a majority of my money is going to the trenches, O-line and D-line, because your D-line can get you the ball in positions where you only got to go 40 yards to get a score. That's how you really win games sometimes, instead of asking your offense to move the ball down the field 80 yards every single time. Ultimately, great season for BYU. They're going to go to an amazing bowl game, but it's very unfortunate that their college football playoff hopes end right here. Texas Tech's continue to move forward. They're probably going to get a first-round bye. I'm really interested to see how far Texas Tech can take this. They look pretty good. Really interested to see who their matchup is going to be, what side of the bracket they're going to fall on. Interested to see where this loss is going to land BYU in the bowl playoff, in the bowl world in general. And we'll see. We'll follow up with that. Great season, though, for BYU to move forward next year. They're going to have to hit the portal, dog. they got to hit the portal. I would really like BYU to try to bring in Dylan Edwards, the running back who just left Kansas State. I would love for them to get another power back, and I would love for them to try to get 2 wide receivers. They got to get some studs at receiver. All right. I don't know how you're going to just replace Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston's production in this offense. You got to find a way to make sure Bear Bachmeier got some dudes to throw to. But I trust Kalani Sitake, so I have full-on faith that he's going to find the people, and they're going to be very competitive next season as well. Guys, if you got to this part of the video, I cannot thank you enough. I am going to go ahead and get a head start on editing this and, you know, getting ready for the Georgia-Alabama game. It was 34-7. This ends up being BYU's worst loss of the season. I think the first loss was like 29-7 for Texas Tech. But listen, still a great season for BYU. There's only one team that stumped them this whole year, and that was Texas Tech thus far. And it didn't have to be that way. I think BYU really might need to look into getting some dogs on the defensive line, though, actually, if you ask me. So if I'm BYU, I want to address the defensive line. And on offense, I need to get another running back to replace LJ Martin's production. I need to get 2 wide receivers to replace Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston. You feel me? All right, guys, man. Shout out to all the BYU fans, man. You guys have been showing up even when you guys are talking shit and you're challenging me. I've appreciated it through and through. And, you know, tough loss, but, you know, you got to be proud of the guys for getting to where they got to and being clearly the second best team in the Big 12. Clearly the second best team in the Big 12. I know it's not going to get you no points with nobody. It's not going to get you in the college football playoff, but still got a lot to be proud of. Peace.